Welcome to the Blackout Broadcast. I'm your host, Mike Bellemare. Got my two sidekicks with me, Jed Staples and Sean LaBelle. Welcome to our show today. Thanks for tuning in. Normally, we're talking about CMEs and the effects they could have. Today's episode, we're going to jump into EMPs with potential war breaking out and Russia pulling shenanigans. We feel it's important to talk about how serious an EMP attack would be and the fact that it's actually a potential. So I got an article from Newsmax. EMP attack consequences could be widespread. A bombshell report claims Russia plans to place a nuclear weapon in outer space. I don't know about you, but that doesn't sound good.
Star Wars.
Seriously, nuclear weapon in outer space, you could drop that thing straight down. There's no way to intercept it. The truth is we've been going before Congress. People have been going before Congress since as early as 1995, presenting Congress with factual information on how widespread the devastation would be from an EMP attack. Jed found some information going over what needed to be done with 100 measures that needed to be put in place immediately, and that was, I believe, 2008, Jed?
Yeah, 2008, the Statutory Commission to assess the threat to the United States from an EMP delivered over 100 recommendations to Congress to protect the national electric grid and other life-sustaining critical infrastructures, including communications, transportation, energy, business, finance, food, water. And they were pretty happy. They were like, yep, this should be enough to get the job done. Everything's there. And then, the EMP Commission reports are quote unquote good news because they prove that there's no excuse for the nation to be vulnerable. Electric grids and other life sustaining critical infrastructures can be protected relatively affordably. For example, the 2008 report estimates that the electric grid's bulk power system can be hardened to survive for just a few $1 billion. And that's in 2008. So, I'm not sure what it would be now, but they continue.
Inflation.
Yeah, we got to account for that.
Yeah. And, when they delivered when the EMP Commission delivered what they thought then was their final report to Congress, and they were hopeful that, America would be on their way to being protected. But, however, by 2015, 20 years later, after the first open congressional EMP hearing in 95, that was the first one. 1995 was the first time it was brought to Congress. The U.S. Government Accountability Office testified to Congress that not a single major recommendation from that list of the EMP Commission had been yet implemented, not even one.
So where did that
Since
money go then?
95.
They gave them that money, they just never used
No,
it?
they
Or
wouldn't
just...
even, they didn't even approve it. They wouldn't even give them the money. And that executive order we talked about, that Homeland Security put out, was actually signed in by former President Donald Trump. You look at what they're doing to Donald Trump, dragging him through the mud, and all he's been trying to do is to insulate and protect and grow the United States. It reminds me of a document that I read. It was Quiet Weapons of a Silent War. And in this document, it goes over propaganda on how to control and manipulate a country by continuously lying and putting out false information, hence Trump's fake news comment all the time. I mean, you have professionals going before Congress telling them that this has to happen or we face grave consequences, and they just shun it. They just shy away from it. In my mind, that's a communist takeover. I mean, I believe the United States government has been taken over at every level by the Communist Party in some way, shape, or form. They're literally flipping this country on their head with the laws they're putting in, the indoctrination into the public school systems. It's a bunch of garbage. The fact that they don't want to insulate our systems, it's like they're setting us up for failure.
Well, see,
Yeah.
they want it to fail.
Yeah,
They hit that big reset button and do it their own way.
Well, exactly. The Great Reset. Remember in COVID, they had those environmental global meetings, and it was the Great Reset, how to plan for the Great Reset, but it didn't go through because the countries that rallied actually overcame COVID and sustained their infrastructure. But it's crazy because this isn't like new news. Since '95, this is brought to Congress. They consequently in 2015, Congress reestablished the EMP Commission in 2015, and from 2015 to 2017 to re-examine the threat and make further recommendations. So, based on the first 100 recommendations, the commission concluded with its new report that the threat to electric grids and other life-sustaining critical infrastructure is just as great or greater than it was in 2008 when they delivered their first recommendation of these are the first 100 that we must protect. And that's the U.S. military, the national economy, the civil society. They're all increasingly dependent upon electricity and electronics that are vulnerable to EMP. And now you've got North Korea. They have missiles and satellites that could execute an EMP attack on the United States right now.
So what has been done since Trump written in that executive order in 2019? Has anything come of that? Has anything been?
Well, when they did the 2015, so the EMP Commission, they added a new report that went to Congress, and they kind of just did nothing with it as usual. And then they really haven't done any protection. And then Trump executed a Homeland Security bill that was shot down after he was out of office, but that's going to be put back into effect after this election if he takes office. Moreover, on July 23rd, 2012, a massive and energetic solar coronal mass ejection crossed the orbit of the Earth, narrowly missing our planet by a few days. And NASA estimated that the likelihood of a solar superstorm of worldwide magnitude, like the 1859 Carrington event, is at least 12% each decade. And you're talking, it just missed us. I mean, that would have been it. And that was in 2012. We would have been, civilization back to.
I wonder if maybe that's what the Mayans were talking about in 2012. Remember that? Maybe they just got the math wrong a little bit.
If you're listening to this broadcast, you are the Resistance. To stay in the know, subscribe to the New Survival Dispatch news channel. Do it now!
Yeah, that's a whole other rabbit hole to dive down. The Mayan calendar is actually based on a 400-day long count. The calendar was adjusted to 365 days, and I got to do some research to get the exact days. But if the Mayan calendar was based on 400 days and we chopped it down to 365 with an leap year, we're not even in 2024 technically.
You mean like 2012, like the end of days date is not accurate, like on our time scale?
Our calendar is sped up, essentially.
Interesting. Yeah, it was I remember that, like that whole 2012 thing when it rolled around, everyone's like, what the fuck's going to happen?
They're like,
it's just like you wake up and you went to bed like nothing ever happened.
It's Y2K all over again.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, but the fact is the information is out there, and we've been going to Congress, and people who are concerned are going to Congress, and they're saying, hey, we have to do something, and they keep kicking it back. Why are they kicking it back? Commie payroll.
Yeah, because they're getting a kickback.
Yeah, exactly. It's we're in times right now where the administration has to change, and we haven't gone down the political rabbit hole, but at the end of the day, the administration we have now is not for the United States by any means. Their main goal is to disrupt and topple the United States, the last beacon of freedom on the planet, and they're just leaving us susceptible to everything. I mean, Russia's putting nukes in space. I mean, you take out satellites, there's your GPS, there's communications, everything goes down. They're talking about going to digital coin. The US is voting on the US dollar coin. You got all these other digital coins, and everything's moving in that direction. EMP comes in, you got a digital wallet in your pocket, toast, you lose everything. So how are we going to continue to move into the digital age and not have this little GFI breaker, EMP shield? We can't continue without it. I mean, we're at a point now where The administration has to change. We need to get Trump back in office, and we need to get this executive order put in place immediately. Jed, you were telling me before we started the podcast that what was the Manhattan? What were we talking about? The
Manhattan
Project.
Well, I was touching base on it's just confusing to me, after fully examining this EMP Commission's report, the most alarming conclusion in the report is that the U.S. government has been incapable of protecting our electric civilization from EMP extinction. And this is pretty wild because the EMP commissioners mostly are from a generation accustomed to thinking of the U.S. government as having the wisdom, the vision, the competence to successfully accomplish great enterprises in the national interest and protect our nation from existential threats. For example, World War II, we took the U.S. Army and transformed it from a non-existent U.S. Army into liberators of Western Europe and Asia. That was the arsenal of democracy, right? And it defeated the Nazi Germany and Imperial Japan, which is huge. In 1942, the Manhattan Project invented the atomic bomb that built the scientific industrial infrastructure that sustained nuclear deterrence. I mean, that's a game changer, right?
So the United States has the capability to.
I mean, Eisenhower, 1956, he did the defensive highway. It was awesome. He did the world's largest highway system, 50,000 road miles consisting of $120 billion for commercial and defense purposes. 1958, Eisenhower, National Aeronautics, the Space Act, created NASA, and we beat the Russians into space.
The United States has the capability, the proven track record to implement at a mass scale very quickly.
Well, whatever happened to the U.S. government capable of these feats? What happened to it? And I'll tell you what happened. Bureaucratic politics, negligence, and gross incompetence accounts for why the U.S. government has failed to protect Americans from an existential threat that is EMP, for example.
Gross negligence and or Communist Party takeover, infiltrating the government and using our own system against us. I mean, we talked about it on the last show where you got kids going to teachers saying they want to switch their gender and the process starts. And then you got China training 5-year-olds for cyber warfare. I mean, I remember about a decade ago, all of the bills going in to shrink the U.S. military, to take the number of our military members down, take funding away from the military. I mean, you have foreign enemies increasing their military. Why would we ever decrease our military?
Yeah.
That doesn't make any sense. So this is all by design. I firmly believe this is all by design. The United States is a young nation in retrospect, about 300 years old, babies when it comes to being established as a country. And if anybody thinks that our enemies don't want to take over the United States, I mean, look at all the space. Like living here in Colorado, you drive north, south, east, west, and you just hit open space. There's
natural resources.
It's not
natural resources in space everywhere. So they want the United States. That desire to come in and take over hasn't gone away. It's just gotten more technical.
At any moment, all electronics could cease to function. This includes your car, your home, your business, and our entire electrical infrastructure. Learn how you can protect yourself from a massive electrical disturbance today. Visit www.empro.com or call 833-EMP-PRO-4 today.
Apparently, protecting and having EMP preparedness, it appears to be greater a challenge than winning World War II, the invention of the atomic bomb, developing a nuclear navy, building a national highway system, or sending a man to the moon.
And how much you think they spent?
Come
How
on,
much you
man.
think they spent on developing the first nuclear bomb? I mean,
If you take into consideration probably inflation nowadays, probably billions.
Yeah.
I would think.
So it can be done. We need to get an administration that sees the threat, that sees the need, comes in,
Yeah.
keeps the money in-house, and implements a project of this scale. I mean, it would require some serious manpower, but look at the track record. The United States has proven its ability to develop technologies and implement the technologies very quickly.
When
So,
it's needed, it's done.
well, that we're there right now. It's
Yeah.
needed.
And it's, what is needed, as recommended by the commission, the EMP commission, is White House leadership, an executive agent appointed by the president, or perhaps even Trump himself, taking charge of a national EMP preparedness to plow through the resistant federal bureaucracy. That's what the president needs to do. That's what Roosevelt did with the Manhattan Project. It's what Eisenhower did with the National Highway System. Protecting our electrical civilization is easy to do. An FERC regulation requiring utilities to protect the electrical grid from 100 kilowatt meters, an E1 EMP, and 85 volts kilometer, E3 EMP, would seriously address and eventually solve this problem.
Well, the technology exists.
It
EMP
does.
Shield is all over it. They're at the drawing board putting together new EMP Shield devices for transformers, and that technology is only going to grow. If we put more money in that direction, this would be common practice. Every transformer, I mean, I'm surprised it ain't happening right now. Every transformer coming off the assembly line should have an EMP unit on it of some kind.
That's a great idea.
I mean, again, the commission has been warning Congress for the threat of electromagnetic pulse, the EMP, or a solar storm for nearly 20 years. A nuclear threat of an EMP attack or a natural EMP or solar superstorm that could destroy electronic civilization. You know what I'm saying? Like it could kill millions of people, and these people do nothing about it for 20 plus years. It just
I mean,
something tells me that's
the
planned.
statistics say that if the power went out in the United States, it's about 90 days, you're losing 75% of the population plus. And a lot of that comes down to, and in this Newsmax article, water. We need electricity to move the water. And I mean, as we all know, you can't go very long without water. So these systems need to be insulated and hardened like right now. And nobody's doing anything. So what do you do? How do you get the government to stop sending money overseas and keep it in-house? I'll tell you, kick out this current administration and put in an administration that actually cares about the United States and not padding their pockets from a communist party.
Yeah. I mean, within the last decade, North Korea, they've developed the ability and threatened to carry out an EMP attack. And the small number of nuclear weapons they have the ability to cause extreme widespread, long-lasting damage to the critical national infrastructures of the United States. And that would allow us not to retaliate if we had no
Oh, it would
way
take
to shoot
down
the
it would take
nukes.
down everything. But and the big thing is at the end of the day, so we know that enemy countries would love to use an EMP against the United States, but at the end of the day, you got the sun hitting a solar maximum that could threaten everybody on the planet. It's like you would think that NATO and world governments would be coming together and talking about this and saying, hey, the enemy of my enemy is my friend, and the big light bulb in the sky that we all depend on can knock us back to the Stone Ages. Why aren't they talking about this more? Why isn't this a widespread thing worldwide where everybody's talking about it, pumping resources into it to insulate us as a globe?
Yeah.
It doesn't make any sense. So let's switch gears here real quick. Last week, your joke. What do you call a tick on the moon? So the answer to that question is a lunatic. What do you call a tick on the moon? A lunatic. Did we get any answers in the comment section?
I believe we did. Let's take a look. Who was it that did that? That was where's the yeah, that was at 98XJ64.
98XJ60 full. You got the answer right.
Nice.
I believe Sean dropped a reply to your comment. If you want to
Yep.
shoot us an email with some information, we'll send you some free swag.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I gotta ask you though, XJ, did you know that off the top of your head, or did you Google it?
He Googled it.
You Googled it.
Definitely.
Yeah. So everybody listening, anybody putting comments in, we love the comments. We love the fact that you're tuning in. We really appreciate your time watching these videos and just staying up to date on what's going on. Any feedback, we love the feedback. Feel free to drop the positive, the negative. Go ahead and roast if you got to roast. Everybody's free to type whatever they want.
We love them haters.
You gotta love them haters. So what? Any other fun articles?
No, the other thing that I had was just that stuff on the Trump administration, but that was just going back to what you guys already talked about. So that was about it.
And we have another meeting discussing how we're going to potentially get some grant money. So if you're not a member, click like and subscribe on the video. If you want more information on EMP Pro, the Blackout Broadcast sponsor, you can go to empro.com. If you'd like to call and talk to one of our reps about getting some products, you can call 833-EMP-PRO-4.
I wouldn't mind touching base on that Mayan calendar again. That way, I still didn't fully understand what you were trying to say with where our time is advanced according to them. So does that mean 2024 should be a different date according to the Mayans?
So yeah, the Mayan calendar is based on a 400-day long count. So basically, their calendar calculating to the 2012 event was based on 400 days a year. Our calendar is 365 days with an leap year every 4 years. And if you do the math, when the calendar was changed, I don't know if you could do a quick Google search on when the calendar was adjusted to 365 days, but if you do that math, it puts us roughly on an accurate timeline in like 1920s. So I know that our calendars all say 2024, but based on the Mayan calendar, which we use to accurately, very accurately predict every lunar event that's taken place, that was based on 400 days. So in actuality, that 2012 event has not happened yet. So Sean's digging that up. But at the end of the day, if you look at the events of the sun and everything going on, it makes sense to the increase in the solar activity. I mean, we'll dive down the rabbit hole about big one that I like to talk about is water displacement theory. Anybody watching who knows what that is, you can definitely drop some comments on water displacement theory. But the fact is, it's not really a theory. All of this comes down to the Doomsday 2012. They've made a bunch of movies about it. So as the solar activity increases, it's all tied in, right? Every religion on the planet talks about some kind of end of days, but at the end of the day, we are advancing as a society, and we do have the means to insulate systems. So I don't want to dive too much down the Mayan calendar hole. We'll save that for another show. But really, really interesting stuff when you start to look at how the Mayan calendar actually worked.
Interesting. So they only had 20 days and a aim days. Interesting. Oh.
Yeah, let's go back to this nukes in space. I want to talk about that real quick. I remember when I think I was like 20 years old. I was watching on the History Channel. They were talking about putting nuclear weapons in space, and if I understand correct, there was an agreement signed that no countries would put nuclear weapons in space. So if Russia is actually putting any kind of nuclear weapon in space, that's going against whatever agreement was signed.
I thought that was just for the moon. When didn't they say that you can't make basically you couldn't make like a military moon base because it was like, whose moon is it?
Should you just go up there and stick a flag in it and be like, my moon?
Yeah, I mean,
if that's the case, the United States won, right?
supposedly.
Yeah, that's up for speculation. They're saying a Hollywood backdrop, but I believe we're on the moon. There's actually a History Channel special on that. It's really cool. They talk about have you seen that? The History
No, I
Channel
haven't- I
special, and they
haven't
talk about
seen it.
Oh,
the
Hollow Moon.
the hollow moon
Yeah.
theory, where Apollo 13, when they had that 1 minute of silence, that it wasn't actually a blackout. That was done on purpose, and the whole reason for that mission was to go up there, and the History Channel talks about it. So they go up there and they set seismograph machines just like we use here on Earth. And they set these seismograph machines up, and they got back in the lander, and then they like took off and they came down for a controlled hard landing. And when they did this hard landing, the seismographs rang like a bell for 45 minutes, which essentially indicates that the moon is in fact hollow.
Wouldn't it have to be metallic as well if it makes like a bell sound?
It's
Because you can't make a stone bell.
You're right. You can't make a stone bell. And the other interesting piece, and this is all on the History Channel, so you can roast away if you want to roast away. But go to the YouTube channel, History Channel, and they have an episode on it. When you look at the depth of the craters on the moon, they're not that deep. You get these ones
They're
that
wide.
they're really wide, but they don't go very deep. And some of these impacts, for the size of these asteroids that hit, they should be really deep, and they're not. They only hit a maximum depth.
Interesting.
I mean, we just really went down the
I'll have to
rabbit hole
bust out
there.
my telescope.
Talking about Mayan calendar and hollow moon. The next thing you know, we're going to be talking about Anunnaki and
Yeah.
Nibiru.
Can't wait.
Yeah, Sean's been pushing for that episode. That's going to be a
some good stuff
3-part
right there.
series,
At least.
at least, coming to you soon.
Get some Anunnaki t-shirts.
But we'll take the tinfoil hats off, and we'll come back down here to Earth right now. We are facing threats from the sun, CMEs, massive coronal ejections, as well as blatant threats. I mean, North Korea, they talk a lot of smack. They're always saying they're going to send a EMP over here or some kind of nuclear weapon. Good luck with that one. We do have some pretty advanced technologies to knock those things out. However, if you put a nuke in space, then how do you intercept something coming straight down?
Yeah.
That'll
Anti-satellite weapons, which
yeah, I'm
are
not sure. I
primarily
don't know much
service to
about that
space
technology.
and air-to-space missiles have been developed by the United States, the Russians, and India, and the People's Republic of China.
Well, how
So they all have the ability to smoke a nuke.
how far up do they have to be exploded for it to? It's pretty high up.
Oh, man,
that's why
I
they
mean,
call them a high altitude,
so-
right? I mean, it's got to be.
Well,
so the nukes are low. They're low altitude is how you detonate those. That's how you get the effectiveness.
yeah. So 57 years ago, through the Outer Space Treaty, the United States and the Soviet Union agreed to codify a fundamental nuclear taboo where nuclear weapons shall not be stationed in orbit or elsewhere in outer space.
See there, right there. So right here it says this is the Newsmax article about how devastating an EMP attack would be. It says a single nuclear weapon 200 miles above the U.S. could short circuit the entire grid and send the country into utter chaos.
So Putin just doesn't give a shit. He's just like, I know we agreed on it, but
Well, he doesn't have anything up there.
yeah, but I mean, look who is. I mean, he's.
But you
he's going
gotta
against
think.
Biden. Biden doesn't even know where the fuck he is right now.
He doesn't know his
Yes.
butt from the hole in the ground right now.
Yeah.
We got to figure that it's the new up and coming countries that have this technology just in the last decade that I'm more concerned about, like North Korea, because they have the ability to fire that nuke into space and satellites to, guide it. So, and they have threatened it. And they
Well, I
don't
mean,
have
look at-
anything there, but I mean, Russia's a real thing too. I mean, but we've got our eye on Russia for sure.
But when was that weather balloon deal? That I mean, they
That
let.
was
yeah.
recently.
No, that was last year, I
Do you
think.
do you have that article pulled up? They let the friggin' weather balloon go across then Biden was in charge. He let the weather balloon float across the entire country. They were either mapping
Here it
military
is right
bases
here.
or
This is the one. I think it was that Texas senator that was, basically telling him it's a real threat, and they only needed about five or six of these balloons, I think he estimated, because I'm assuming that's just because the balloon that it's carried on probably couldn't carry a very high yield device, but
Mhm.
if you had about half a dozen small ones,
Mm,
strategically placed,
yeah.
you could make, a bigger area of effect. But yeah, I believe this was recent. Well, like maybe the last couple of years. I remember everyone was talking about the balloons.
It was within the last 3 years because
Yeah,
the Biden,
2023 February.
yeah.
So yeah,
I mean, you got
that's crazy though.
a president with dementia that's not even in charge. The Communist Party has their hand so far up Biden's ass. He's just a mouthpiece. So at the end of the day, something's got to change. The United States has to do something to get us back on track. And right now, the current administration, all they want to do is have everybody talking about what bathrooms to use, boys becoming girls, girls becoming boys. There's no forward direction. You're not getting the youth of this country to move in any positive direction with all of the crap that they're pumping into these kids' heads. I don't know. I'm voting for Trump. I'll say that right now. 100% I'm voting for Trump. And when he gets into office, I guarantee that this executive order gets some rocket boosters put behind it, and there's some money that gets put on the table to start insulating the systems. Now, I wish we could be kumbaya, everybody coming together, the whole planet working together. But for whatever reason, everybody thinks they have the idea on how the world should be ran. But it's not under a communist rule. I'll tell you that. You can't run under a communist rule. There's no room for anybody to inspire or grow when you're under a communist thumb.
Yeah, America is a special place where you can say what you want. You have the right to protect you and yours. And, that's why America is so great. That's why everybody wants to come here. It's the land of the free, man. And it's a lot of people have fought and died for that. And I'm not going to let that just sit by. That's for damn sure.
Well, it's freedom to think. It's freedom to invent and be inspired to create. So
Well, I'd just be okay with people being accountable. Next Gen Z is just, it's everybody else's fault. And yeah, they expect to be taken care of. And, it's like,
well,
I don't get it, man. I work with the young guys and you're just scratching your head like, man, no one taught you anything. Like, where are your parents?
No one's ever been slapped in the mouth before.
Yeah,
That's the problem.
Discipline, direction, and encouragement. It all starts from the home. It should be very little government control. It'd be very, very little government presence. You work with the teachers in your community and they help teach the, curriculum, but the real learning comes from the family unit.
When you look at what's being attacked, it's the home, it's the parental units, it's all the rights are being taken away from the parents. I mean, some parents are afraid to even spank their kids. Afraid of getting the social services called on them or whatever.
Oh, brutal.
But yeah, this was kind of off the track with today's episode. We just definitely wanted to talk about Congress. Get your heads out of your asses.
Yeah, a lot of them got to go, man. I mean, there's a lot of crooks in there.
Put some money on the table. Make America great again. Insulate the systems, not only from EMP attack, but CMEs. The threat is there. The threat is real. We got to do something. We got to do it now. So we thank you for watching. We're going to call it for today.
Land of Land, your trusted source for extraordinary vacant land across America that expresses your unique, special passions while diversifying your investment portfolio and hedging against runaway inflation. Imagine the thrill and prestige of land ownership, owning a piece of America, making the best investment on earth as simple as an online purchase. Off-the-grid serenity. Pricing from $1,000 payable by credit card. Visit us today at landofland.com, America's premier land wholesaler for over a decade.